Welcome, Dr. Katrina, to the show. You are the expert on working with brilliant jerks. And so I want to dive into that. And please also talk to the audience about why you wrote that first book, its title and everything. Because let's launch from there. I don't talk to many people that are that candid with senior leaders and then can actually help them learn how to be better people. That's quite a skill set.
Well, thank you. And it's a pleasure to be on your podcast. So how come I was interested in this type of subject and interest? There's two reasons. One, I started as a child with a stepfather that was very brilliant, but interpersonally blind and hurtful. And so later on in life, I realized that his intent was positive, but he just didn't have the skill set to really say something in a way that a girl of 12 years old could understand. And then I realized that in the workplace, there's also, people that are very good technologically, maybe high, brilliant engineers, or they can be technologically very savvy, or a super surgeon that that the hospitals have waited a long time to try to bring them to the hospital, and then they find out that none of the nurses want to work with them. So that's really an issue. And the same thing, sometimes leaders are brought in to turn around a situation, and they're under huge stress to perform, and that stress comes out very abrasively towards people. And then, of course, they can never lead because no one wants to work with them. So, in fact, so that's one reason. That's a business reason and a desire to help these people. Everyone says a brilliant jerk, you just fire them. But often the company has, they want to keep them because they are brilliant, and maybe that surgeon that they've courted for years has finally come to the hospital, and then they find out that he's inadequate with his interpersonal relationships. But he does have charisma, and he is drawing a lot of clients from all over the world. That could be it. Or an engineer that is absolutely brilliant, or a businessman that he closes every deal where other people have difficulty. So they do have something that brings something positive to the company. That's when they call me and say, can you work with that? Because we can't deal with him on an interpersonal level.
Do you ever find that when you get called in that that the company was overlooking, they also have some ethics issues? And so you have to kind of raise the red flag on that, hey, you're not paying attention to this area. And so although they may be brilliant and I can solve their interpersonal issues, unless you deal with this ethics flaw, there's no future here.
Oh, that's a very good point, and I do consulting work with the companies because if you change somebody and to be much more interpersonally savvy, but you put them back in a culture that only rewards, outcome at all cost. Well, it's like taking a recovering alcoholic back to the bar with his buddies. It's gonna cause a lot of strife, and the all that effort that they had to change his behavior is not, or her behavior is not going to be to much avail. So yes, it's very important that we look at the company and see what are they rewarding, what is valued by the culture, and what is not. And do they have a code of ethics, like you say, that people, need to emulate or stand by?
Because when you're called in, do you have like kind of a research process that you go through where you're not only working with the person, but you're talking with all these other people that interact with them? So you catch some red flags that maybe people haven't voiced previously.
Yes, what a good question. You're smart.
No, I'm just sincerely interested.
Yeah. So yeah, it's very important to really see both the interpersonal and the organization. Tell me your question again. I got
So,
distracted.
well, it's because I think it may relate to our prior conversations, but um, it sounds like what you do is, a lot of coaches that are less experienced than you, Dr. Katrina, just jump into coaching the individual. Whereas, based on your experience, and you got a PhD and all these things, and so you have this vast knowledge, your approach, you impressed me, although I don't think you went into detail, is that when you're assigned to coach someone, you have a research side to it where you're going to talk with all kinds of people more than just send out a survey to really get a feel for how this person interacts with others. Am I correct?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, for two things. One, to understand the culture, and could be simple questions like, and this is research done through all different stakeholders of the person I'm coaching, is what is rewarded here? How do you get fired? Except if you don't steal, you don't want the extreme cases. What is rewarded? How do you get, to the next level here? What is appreciated? What is not? So that's on one side, that the culture. Then there's also research work as what does this person have that is highly valued by the company? So there you can get a tweak about the culture and also how that person is perceived for what he contributes to the company. And then I don't say what is the person's weakness, because if they're abrasive and they're a jerk, believe me, then it never ends. I say, how can you make the relationship you have with him more productive? What would it make this relationship more productive? So the responsibility is on both people, the brilliant jerk and the other. And the other thing that's very important to do in this case is to have people that the brilliant jerk respects, because otherwise he'll just, or she will just brush away everything that is said in that report. And there's another element. You have to make it so granular that it's easy to translate what the research says into a very specific action plan. Example, I usually like to say this example. This was a woman that was absolutely brilliant, but interpersonally blind. She walked 3 steps ahead of her employee. And every time they asked a question, since she was very brilliant and very quick, she would go, and roll her eyes. See, so that is so specific that someone that's very intelligent understands exactly what they need to do. You have to give them that kind of feedback. And it's nonverbal, so they didn't even realize how that was impacting the other person. You see?
Yeah. And so, how often do you come into situations where you're getting to know the culture by asking these questions, and they've hired you to fix this individual, but you come back and you say, well, actually, the individual has these issues that I can work on, but you also have some problems with your culture.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you have an
So,
example of that? Maybe, I don't know.
yes, yes. So I was coaching top management, the person from the top management, and the CEO of this multinational called me in because he heard I was interviewing a lot of people and got a little curious what was going on. And I was a little bit nervous that he wanted to know something about my client I was coaching. And of course, it's confidential, and there's no way I'm going to give that report to anybody else but my client. Uh, so, yet I'm not going to say, no, Mr. CEO, I'm not going to come and see you. So I go there and he says, so how's everything? I said, well, I have 10 things I could tell you about your company. Would you like to listen? Boom, 1, 2, 3, 4. After he was aghast how much I knew about his company in only 1 month that I was working there. And I said, these are the issues that you could work on. And he never asked anything about my client, which was my objective. But at the same time, it also gives me consulting jobs to how to improve the general environment, and that there's alignment between the core values and the company's behaviors.
So these people that are jerks that you get called in, and we don't. I know you don't use the term to be mean, but people who misbehave. Um, what percentage of them do you find are truly have some narcissistic traits versus they're actually good people who really just have some bad habits?
That's a good question. Now, I don't deal with narcissists, or yes, that's a clinical term, and it has a clinical consequences. And I've seen scans of brains of people that are really narcissist. I mean, because today everyone uses the word narcissist without really knowing what it is. It is a sickness. I mean, I've seen videos of a 12-year-old girl that was out to kill her parents and her brother, and nearly did. The parents came just in time. That is a real sickness. I don't do that. The assumptions of coaching is that the person can help themselves. Well, if you're that sick, you can't really help yourself. You really need exterior help. That's why we call these coaching clients and not patients. So if we can consider that everyone uses the word narcissist very freely, then I need to determine two things. One, is the person unaware but has huge need to succeed and feels like he's a failure or she's a failure if they don't succeed? I mean, sometimes you can look back in how they were their upbringing, and
Yeah.
maybe they were valued for everything they did and never really loved or never felt loved for who they are. Well, imagine that pressure on yourself. You always are only as good as the last thing you did well. So there's huge amount of pressure. So that you can work with. That you definitely can work with. If like I see these scans of people that are narcissists, and you see there's a whole part of their brain that is dark blue, which should be activated. Well, that's something I will not work. I'll send them to a specialist. So I think you need to know your limitations. But I do think, and that's my premise, that these people can change if they're not medically narcissist.
Yeah, good point. Good point. I appreciate the clarification. And when you have these people that are very strong-willed, so they're, as you said, they're superstars, and or they have a large, a significant title, but very strong-willed people are not always open to all you have to say or your recommendations on how they can change. So how do you
Yes.
deal with that?
So usually they don't want to change. They come because they're forced to. So I have to work with their boss too, or somebody on the board, so that there's some pressure too, so that they know why I'm coming in. They need to know why I'm coming in.
Yeah.
And then I don't force them to do the coaching because they're high-willed, like you say, and very alpha male or alpha female. So I always let them have the decision. I just say, would you be curious that I give you feedback? Are these elements serving your career or not? And what are you perceived as brilliant?
And you
So,
mentioned that you get people that they trust involved. How
mhm.
do you identify those people? And then how do you in what type of involvement do you expect from them?
They can have people they trust. And of course, they're going to try to influence the outcome or who I interview, you know. But just, research, qualitative research, you ask the same question to a certain amount of people, and some just feel like they have to get it off their chest. And if enough people say the same thing, there's maybe something there. If one person just hates this person and can't say anything positive and just tears him or her apart, I don't want that either. I don't want personal vendetta. I want a core perception that is identical. So I will research until the information becomes redundant, because people are saying the same thing on certain areas.
You
And
know,
then,
yeah, go ahead.
go ahead, then I give it back to the brilliant jerk. Believe me, they decide to do some coaching because they're high achievers usually, and they don't hate the fact that they're not good in some area.
Yeah, it reminds me, I was working with a young man, and somebody gave some negative feedback, and he blew it off. Just, I'm not rude in that way. I don't do that. No, no. And so I tried to talk to him a little bit, and he just kept blowing me off. I said, well, you think they're making it up? And that stopped him in his tracks, because he realized, no. Well, if they're not making it up, then maybe I need to reconsider. So when you get hired to come in and work with these brilliant people, and it's very interesting, and we didn't emphasize it earlier, but you've kind of alluded to it or mentioned it, is that, they're brilliant and they're superstars, but they actually could be achieving much, much more
Yes.
if they could resolve these issues. So can you kind of walk us through the process that you go through to work with these people? Because it sounds like at the level that you're working, helping someone understand these bad habits and overcoming them results in millions of dollars, if not tens or hundreds of millions of dollars of additional revenue or profits for the organization, because they're at such a pivotal point.
Absolutely. It's very profitable for the company to turn around this person. And
Yeah.
also because the company can bleed by excess turnover, litigations, litigation or harassment. So this could be really detrimental. And there's some non-official ways that it makes people less productive, because a person comes in that's a jerk, and they say, oh, he's in a bad mood today, we won't say anything. So problems that usually surface quickly so they can be dealt with quickly, they don't, because they're too afraid that the messenger will be shot.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that causes crisis situations as well. So now you might think, oh my goodness, they can never change. But I feel like they need to be given a chance to change. They're usually above average bright, because that's usually when companies call me, because they have value for the company. And the pressure that they've had in their youth never goes completely away, but they can manage it a lot better and be much more less triggered. You see, there's things that trigger them and they lose it. We all lose it every now and then, right? I guess so. But it's the repetition of it, or it's the one time being absolutely charming and then being very indirectly hurtful or directly hurtful.
Yeah.
Sometimes directly hurtful is less harmful than being constantly digging and saying things that are hurtful, but you can't really realize it right away, because sometimes they can be very charming and then all of a sudden attack you. So you're put at a, how to say, you're not balanced.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So people call you in and they say, we've got this brilliant jerk. And what's the process you go through to help that person?
okay, so they don't usually say he's a brilliant jerk, but they say he needs more leadership and his interpersonal skills. Yeah, that's usually the case. So what's the process? One, it's a lot of it is like most other coaches, it's self-awareness. Then I do boss awareness. Then I do team awareness. Then I do stakeholder awareness. And that's a huge amount of research that I bring back. Usually these people love data. So I bring them data, and where they can first see where they can change very specifically, and where even the people they respect might see something that could be improved, and where they're brilliant. And then it's really executing this report that I give to them and trying new behaviors and being more conscious of their triggers and managing what they want out of it and the outcomes they want and being more strategic.
Well, it sounds like one of the ways that you're able to reach a tipping point for the superstar is that you rely on data. And so this data from the research you do kind of gives them something that they can't dismiss or overrule like they would someone's opinion or suggestion.
It's data, but it's then the implementation of their insights, and constantly the execution is extremely important. It's because each time they try something new, they have to have insights and work with them to see, because they'll have a first impression. And usually they say, oh, that's because he's incompetent. So I'm giving you a simplified version of it. But then you have to make them see all the different possibilities of what it could be. So the execution and the insights that you cause is extremely important. Then they have to try new behaviors and see how it works. And that's when it's very important that the system is prepared when people try new behaviors. Give you an example. Okay, I'm abrasive, let's say. Hopefully not, but let's say I'm abrasive. And, I'm very aggressive usually. And I come to you and I say, David, so how was your weekend? How are your kids? How are your dogs? Good? Okay, bye. Something like that. And you say, oh my God, why is she asking me all these questions? What does she want from me now? She's trying to manipulate me. Let's say an extreme example. I'm simplifying. So if the system knows that the person is working on their leadership and trying, and there's a certain authenticity to the process, those people will see, he's trying to change or she's trying to change. And of course, it's awkward a little bit, but we'll show something positive towards the person because of the effort. So then the person comes back, oh, I tried it. And she said something nice, or this and this happened. You see? So that's where the culture is very important to understand that as well. And also preparing the people around the person that this process will take time and the efforts will be like a seesaw a little bit in the beginning, and to prepare them.
Yeah. So typically, how long is your engagement? And you have it in kind of pieces, it sounds like, where you've got the research piece, the presentation, and then you're kind of implementing with them, walking with them as they implement and hopefully grow through the process.
So when the beginning part is pretty intense, because you want to create that awareness and that social awareness, which Danielle Goldman speaks about. So it's pretty intense, but then you have to keep the pressure, you see. So, in the first 3 months, they might make a lot of effort, but then it sort of dwindles down and you get back to your old habits. So you have to keep the pressure for a certain amount to that person can integrate this new behavior. And it's evaluated also in the beginning with research, and also at the end, what people have perceived, because after all, they have to perceive the difference, the stakeholders. And
Yeah.
it's happened where I had a client that she was about to be fired, and at the end of the year, the people that complained about her proposed her as the leader of the year. So, it can be very rewarding, and it gives this person a chance to have a better career and not be limited by the glass ceiling.
Yeah. No, I mean, it sounds like it has a lot of value for people, particularly, I mean, as you said, these superstars, you have them on board for a reason. but you can't keep turning away from the way that they're hurting other people or damaging the organization. Particularly, you mentioned early on turnover. If they're driving other people out, I mean, that's really a negative. I had somebody call me just uh, 3 weeks ago, I think, where they have one of their leaders, and the leader lost several people that they had just hired because they're
Yes.
not working well with people.
Yes, it's a real big cost. Turnover, absenteeism, presenteeism, health issues, low morale, uh, lack of motivation.
Yeah, big time. Now, so you've written this book, Managing Brilliant Jerks, and you must have another one in the works. When can we expect that?
I'll start writing it in the fall. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Well,
So
that's great. You want to give the audience any hints on what to expect there?
it's when even the brilliant jerk will succeed on a new assignment abroad. That's a long title, I know.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, it makes sense though with the abroad, because if you got somebody who's difficult in a current environment, and then you go to a different culture, whether they're going to Japan or they're going to Saudi Arabia or, you know, Great Britain or wherever it might be, those cultures all behave differently. I would think those brilliant jerks could really cause some trouble there if they weren't coached well beforehand and got rid of some of those bad habits.
Yes, you're absolutely right. And EQ is one thing, but there's the cultural EQ too.
Oh yeah.
And where does it overlap and where does it differentiate?
Yeah. And I know you have an international background, but
Yes.
a lot of Americans think everybody operates like America,
Yes.
which is very, very flawed, right?
Yes. I love the States, but it's true. And I can understand why the country is huge.
Yeah.
Uh, it's America. But when you come from a country where I grew up, which is Switzerland, there's 4 official languages. We're surrounded by 4 different countries, and you can't not speak several languages. So, and you're constantly hearing accents of people from different countries. So it's part of your life. And also, I've worked at the UN, World Health Organization, UNAID, International Labor Organization, where you walk down the hall and there's people from all over the world. So that's a difference. But I
Yeah.
love the States. Don't get me wrong. I think it's a great country.
No, that's great. So you're doing the coaching. You also happen to do a lot of podcasts. But
Yes.
talk to the audience about what you're doing on your podcast.
So podcast it's called Excellent Executive Coaching. And it's really, I love coaching, and I'm a master certified coach, one of the first in Switzerland. So it's a way of giving back to help people, improve their coaching or have, uh, see which coaches are specialized in which area. And so you can position yourself better and have ideas of how to improve and to be a better coach. So it's my contribution.
Well, that's awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to your next book. And if
Thank you.
people want to learn more about you, where do they go? For those people who are listening on audio, because of course we're going to post it in the notes on the podcast.
It's called excellentexecutivecoaching.com. So that's my website, and the podcast is called Excellent Executive Coaching. So it's all the same. Yeah.
Fabulous. Fabulous. Well, thank you, Dr. Katrina, for being with us today. Really appreciate it. I think we've certainly got some people in the audience there that could use your help with one of their brilliant jerks on their team. Of course, not them. They're never brilliant jerks, but
No,
a
that's
member of
right.
their team. Yeah.
Right. Thank you, David. It's a real pleasure talking to you.